specializes in creating and maturing cybersecurity programs that focus on risk reduction while aligning their work to client budget realities. Prior to joining Reveal Risk, Cody served as Chief Technology Officer for a successful Midwest-based IT managed service provider with clients that span the US and Western Europe. While there, he built the cloud security practice that assisted clients in overcoming technical obstacles and closing gaps on their path to security, maturity, and regulatory compliance. Cody's experience spans 17 plus years, working with local professional sports teams to Fortune 1000 companies in nearly all major industries. He's a certified information systems security professional and has worked with such frameworks as SOC, NIST, and SOX. In 2021, the Indianapolis Business Journal recognized Cody as the CTO of the Year Honoree. Cody is a proud Boilermaker, Boiler Up, and philanthropist at heart, serving on the board of directors for 1150 Academy and the Central Indiana ISACA chapter. He makes his home in Zionsville with his wife, Rebecca, and two daughters, Lottie and Phoebe.
Right on. Well, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for that intro. How's your week going?
It's going well. I'm recovering from last week, our week of events last week.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, good to meet you. And I see one familiar face on here. Met Monique and their previous engagement. So, well, cool. Well, thanks for having me. This is super kind of interactive. So I've got a few slides up here that I'll kind of share. Hey, Monique. And kind of go through there. I'm more of like an interactive Q&A. So if there's any questions at any time, feel free to throw a hand up. I'll try and catch it. Mark, if there's a question and I miss it, feel free to pause me. But the goal here really is just kind of chat about cybersecurity in general and kind of, you know, the options in career going through it. I'll share my story and kind of why I got into it. But this is more about, you know, about what's out there, what's in cybersecurity, the growing landscape, the opportunity, and something I'm just very, very passionate about. So let me share my screen. Jesus, let me know if you can see it.
Definitely.
All right. All right, good. So introduction, that was kind of already done earlier. So again, I'm Cody Rivers, Director at Reveal Risk. Reveal Risk is a security consulting firm. So we design and build programs for firms of all sizes. We specialize in like life sciences and large pharma, mostly national. We've got a few clients in Europe and Australia as well. But we focus on building cyber programs. So third-party risk, awareness programs, and so forth. So as you heard earlier, also a proud Boilermaker, so went to Purdue and majored in computer engineering. Very proud husband and girl dad. And then I'm also on the board for the ISACA, which is the Information Systems Audit Controls Association. So local chapter that helps with cybersecurity and like InfoSec, and then governance and risk and compliance. Also on the board for 1150 Academy, which is a local school that does they specialize in cybersecurity coding, but a great education company here in town. And then Kids Voice is a local nonprofit that helps kids in custody battles and represents a nonprofit law firm that represents kids in the court of law and custody battles. So my background, before when I was younger and went to college, I loved technology, was a huge infrastructure networking kind of guy. Loved it, got into it. And then after college, worked in my father's company for about 4 to 5 years. And then went from there and started my own MSP with a partner of mine. So we started our previous firm, grew it over about 9 or 10 years. And then last year at the end of the family, I was ready for a change. And over the past 7 to 8 years, we focused a lot on like building cyber programs. So as you can imagine with the landscape, there's a lot of compliance frameworks that come out, a lot of new challenges from roadmaps. And so as CTO, my job was to help align the technology to solve for the compliance problem. So they have a control or a regulatory requirement. And so my job was to help them choose the tech, vet the tech, and then help design a program to implement the tech to satisfy one of the controls or the compliance framework. So brief history on me, kind of why I got into it. I am a big extrovert. I love technology. I love cybersecurity specifically, but a lot of my passion comes from seeing the results of like the consulting side of it, of looking at problems, solving those problems, and then kind of communicating back to the business, kind of what we did, how we did it, how it solved the problem, and building roadmaps. So huge IT guy. From general housekeeping, I kind of do this because it's an evolving topic, but again, cybersecurity, it's basically the practice of, keeping systems safe, data networks, through risk for human risk, tech risk, business risk. But it's, there's no shortage of news that goes on right now with bad actors trying to get into companies. They're compromising things. They're running ransomware, financial schemes. It's a very, very profitable industry for bad actors, but cybersecurity for the good guys is a growing area. And it's increasingly important because as we see more cloud, more technology, more SaaS, more things in the cloud, there's more access to it. And so there's an increasing need for companies to develop a cyber program to defend those entities, defend that data, and prevent attacks from the future. So it's kind of an uphill battle, because I always say the bad guy or the good guys have to be right every time. The bad guys just need to be right one time. So it's kind of, the cards are kind of stacked against you, but definitely a challenge there and a big need from the current landscape. So why get into cybersecurity? I found that it's a challenging but a very rewarding field. You get to see, again, earlier I said, you get to kind of really see the difference you can make. And so you come into a company of all sizes, and different companies, different sizes, and different challenges, whether it's hospital, they're carrying, sensitive data from patient health records. You've got banking, which is like financial, and there's a lot of finance involved. Oil and gas, energy companies, their systems run networks for homes and communities and businesses. So every industry, every size business has got risk. They've got vulnerabilities. So it's kind of a cool way to challenge, to say, how do we build a program to protect these things and help the company identify what's most important to them? Because you can't block everything, and you don't have an unlimited budget. So it's a challenge to say, okay, we've got X amount of dollars. How do we best use this money to solve this problem, and where do we want to attack our biggest risk? It's also a growing field. So there's a global shortage of cyber professionals in general. Not only has the need for cyber professionals grown, but the horizontal size of buckets that they would fit in. So technical, process, risk, regulatory, compliance. If you go back, 15 years or so ago, when I first got into like cyber 17 or 20 years ago, it was like cybersecurity was like a nested option under like network or under coding. You would just do secure practices. And now you've got entire organizations or business units within companies that their sole job is cybersecurity. So it's a growing demand, and it's only growing faster. If you look at any of the news or the statistics, it's just a wild growth from a standpoint of need. And then for anything great in careers in general, is that the average salary for cyber professionals is significantly higher than the national average. So because of the need, because of the supply, because of the demand, obviously equal large salary and large compensation packages. So again, a great industry. I liked it for the first option, but then the next two are also obviously great. So kind of getting into like different paths of cybersecurity, I think this is one of the things that I talk about a lot with people, is that people think cybersecurity is just the coding and just the guys trying to hack, when a lot, it's very diverse. You've got everything from, you've got your security analysts, you've got your forensic people, the vulnerability, the guys and the ladies that are doing the code. But then you've got like policy people, you've got security auditors, you've got security managers, and these are folks that aren't necessarily technical, but are doing program aspects of it, keeping you compliant with processes like patch management. So there's knowledge of technical, but it's more like program process. And it's very important to have that linkage between tech and the business, because when you're enabling cyber, or you're locking things down, or you're increasing your resiliency, there's potential to slow a business down. So if a business can't grow and they can't produce revenue or can't do what it does to make money, security isn't really a factor because they can't produce money. So there's a very broad arena of positions within cyber that are cybersecurity that are always called cyber. And I know a lot of things on the board for 1150, and this is the thing we're working on right now, is that the most common things to go into cyber are coding, pen testing, ethical hacking, kind of the engineering type. But there's a large, it's called GRC, or governance, risk, and compliance. And it's a large area that people typically don't go into right out of college or right out of a trade school or right out of, kind of a program. They've been in business somewhere, they've been in audit, they've been in risk, or they kind of pivoted. But it's a very large, and it's a cyber kind of focus or cyber task within companies. So you kind of see here entry level, mid level, senior management. CISO is the kind of the top of the spear for Chief Information Security Officer, Chief Risk Officer, Chief Compliance Officer, or others, and then CIO, Chief Information Officer, or other kind of C-suite positions that would also fall with cyber responsibilities. So senior director, senior manager. But the biggest thing I take away from this is, like, you don't have to be technical to be strong in cybersecurity. The people, process, and the human risk side of cyber is as important, if not more important, than just the technical aspect. This is an example of kind of what I was just saying, is this is like this is from January of this year. This is the security certification roadmap of like what's out there. So you see it's very large. And so from left to right, the colors, and I can send this out, or I think they'll send this presentation out, but like you got domains within cybersecurity. You got from left to right, and the green is communication network security. The blue is IAM, which is identity access management, and that's solely on how you log in, authenticate to different applications within a business. Solely just that, how you log in, a password, email, all the applications through a company is just its own vertical as well. Security architecture, engineering, that's again your design, how you design a system, how you're looking at pulling data out, pushing data in, how do you wrap it, how's it secure. Asset security is the workstations, the PCs, the cell phones, the iPads. That's kind of like how you secure the assets to a business, both physical and digital. So again, guarding data files that are in the cloud. Probably one of the bigger ones, and the GRC that I mentioned earlier, is the security and risk management. And this one probably ties the most into the business. So having, your CFO, your CEO engaged, like, where's my risk in the business? If I'm a large manufacturer and I'm producing, screws and everything, hour by hour. From a business standpoint, if there's a cyber attack and that is shut down, I can't produce my product, I can't make money. So that's why the business is heavily impacted by cyber. So there's got to be a good correlation or a good partnership there to say, where are we vulnerable? Where do we have cyber risk? And then how does the cyber team or the tech team help solve that problem? They can solve it with process. They can solve it with teaching the people not to do a click on emails. They can do it with technology to help guard and antivirus to anti-phishing to web filters. But that's kind of this kind of middle area is kind of the bridge between both sides that takes the business aspect and security and kind of melds that plan to say, here's how we're going to guard our risk, and here's where the risk is acceptable. We're okay with the risk, or it's beyond our tolerance level. We need to figure a way to mitigate risk, or just say we can't be in this business or this area because it's too risky for us. We have too much exposure. Security assessment and testing, that's kind of like validating systems. So you're looking at, software testing. Is the software secure? Are they testing for injections of code? How vulnerable or how easy can bad actors get into our system? Software security, again, it's a little similar. It's around like antivirus software. EDR is endpoint detection and response, but there's a myriad of like software security that kind of comes there that people focus on, like implementing security software to solve for a control. And then SecOps, or security operations, which are the far right, that's mostly around incident response, or once something bad has happened, how do we respond? How do we detect it? How do we see where they got in? So if someone got in and got some files, they ransomware, they got to get in, they got to locate it, they got to find it, they got to recover the application, recover the business back to functional. They got to respond to people, to, you know, law firms, to PR firms, to the news, as a company. And then you got to recover. So you got to respond, recover, and go from there. So the SecOps portion is heavily around the incident response and the once something bad has happened, or watching for the technical side. But again, left to right, a lot of certifications. It kind of goes bottom to top from beginning to expert. It's not 100% accurate. I don't agree with everything on here, but it's one of the few things I've seen that kind of gives you a large look at all the acronyms. You can Google any one of these acronyms and say what the cert is and get more information about it. But you can see there's quite a bit. So skills in so skills for a career in cybersecurity, you know, it depends. Again, early, there's no like set amount of skills you got to have, because again, I said earlier, there's varying levels of cyber. There's the technical side where you're heavy in the code, and I'm an awful coder. I passed by the grace of God in college, so I am not a security coder. But on the technical side, from infrastructure, I know the infrastructure. I know how to apply that. I know how to solve a problem. So problem solving skills and critical thinking skills are probably the two most important in my mind that are just, you know, uniform across all of them. And then communication, because communication is probably one of the more lacking skills in cyber, because you've got a heavy technical focus, but being able to communicate to the business, communicate to how we're solving the problem, and kind of getting buy-in amongst a group, because there's always a natural battle in cyber, because cyber teams want to lock things down, and other folks in sales and other teams want to pick things off. And so they're always trying, this is like kind of battle of how safe are we? Do we, you know, amount of seatbelts, amount of padding, you know, that kind of thing in correlation to life. But the general skills, I said, problem solving, critical thinking are required. Communication's a big one, you know, again, for some of those business type levels and some of that as you kind of climb that management ladder. And then technical skills are always a bonus. They're still required in certain areas, not always required. So I know a lot of people that are in cyber that aren't super technical, but know the terminology and know how it applies to the business and can validate. And then how to get started, how to get into cyber. There's a lot of options. When I was in college, there was no there was no major for cyber. My major was computer engineering. So there's now actually cybersecurity as a major. We've got a few interns at our office now, and it's cool. Again, even talking to him and with him seeing some of our business, he's like, man, I never knew there was like audit in cyber. So he was, even colleges now are still in the technical side, but you see cybersecurity coming out now from the college standpoint. Outside of colleges, you've got like accelerated programs or certificate programs. 1150 has one, Google has one. You'll see certificates at like MIT or Penn or University of Penn, Carnegie Mellon. So you'll see programs that they're not the full four-year college, they're an accelerated program or a certificate, but it may be in a specialized area. So those are big for, again, second career. I've kind of, you know, I want to change careers, or just college was not for me. I just want to go right from high school into one of these kind of certificate programs and as well. And then on the job training or OJT, these are kind of the four main bodies within cyber that are kind of the sources of certifications. So like the CISSP, which I think Mark mentioned earlier, what I have is one of the primary like security certification that's under ISC squared. SANS is a big one. ISACA is the one I'm on the board for here locally, and then IAPP is around privacy. But all four of these are kind of like the different brands that kind of set standards, they set frameworks for cybersecurity. They have certification programs, and then within there's training out there. And then I would say that probably the thing I didn't put on here is YouTube. YouTube, Coursera, Udemy are kind of online videos, but you can Google any certification on the slide I showed earlier into YouTube, and you'll find countless hours of free, like just videos, classes, whiteboard sessions of security, you know, fundamentals, how to pass the test, what's on the test. But the important thing is like the content from those things. But I put those more on the job training because it's really hard to just jump into those without being in the business first. So without being in the arena for some time, to jump to a CISSP or to a CIPP, which is a privacy certification, is tough. And I don't think I've mentioned privacy, but the privacy area of cyber is around data privacy. So that's another area that falls under cyber, and that's heavily on how data is used, who touches it, who can see it in the company, what data you're collecting on your clients. I just had someone on my podcast, on our podcast today, and she's a privacy lawyer at Creek DeVault. And what she was saying was, like, so many companies don't realize that with all the new AI and the chat GPT, big cyber risk. And so what you're seeing is a lot of companies are getting this stuff, and it's really cool, but they're putting company IP or company secrets into chat GPT to try and, have it manipulate or create an output, not realizing that once that data is in chat GPT or BARD or into AI tools, it's now public knowledge. And so data privacy is another exploding area that's within cyber, just around where data goes, how it's looked at, who has access to it, and then what's public or not. So again, those four areas are the kind of the areas that kind of get a source of, like, a lot of knowledge, a lot of framework stuff, and then really key is certifications. I'm not overly huge on getting certified out of the gate. I think they're great to show proficiency, but I think knowing the concepts and, like, having some of, like, the experience is going to go a lot further than just having, a cert or some initials next to your name. But they're important as you grow to show proficiency and kind of, separate as you show mastery. But a lot of certifications require you to have 5+ years in one of the domains on top of taking the test, on top of the credit hours. So I recommend, like I said, one of the other programs first, and then kind of back into some of the other certifications that are there at SANS or ISC, IC squared, ISACA, and then IAPP. Over here. So summary, again, a career in cybersecurity, it's fun, it's challenging, but it's rewarding. But I'll say it's ever changing. It's not what you learn today, and you'll kind of master it and understand it, and then things are going to change. It's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. It builds on each other, but it's not like your I can't think of what off the top of my head, but where, like, it doesn't change as fast. It's every 6 months or 6 to 12 months, it constantly evolves. There's new threats, there's new challenges, there's new technology out there. AI is been a rocket ship for cyber, good and bad, because as fast as you can protect things with AI, the bad guys can concoct things using AI and supercomputers to try and get in and manipulate things with, email compromise, email phishing, trying to get into people's bank accounts, or trying to elicit nefarious behavior from within companies. So if you're interested in cybersecurity in the career, again, I shot some resources on here on slide what was this, slide 8, and then slide 6 was a lot of certifications. Again, I'll PDF this and send it out, or send it to the Be Nimble team to shoot around. But there's a lot of resources out. There's a lot of free training. There's a lot of, like, grants that are out there. There is just a lot of free things out there. If you're in college, there's a lot of courses, of course, there, and then other programs like 1150 Academy. That's here in Indianapolis, and I know we have kind of a national audience here. But with the right skills and right experience, you can have a very successful career, very fulfilling career. There's a lot of need. There's a shortage of people right now to get into cyber. I think it's two reasons. One, it's just brand new in general, but also there's always this stigma. If I'm not super technical, I can't code, I can't get into cyber. And a lot of cyber is not coding. There's a lot of process and business side of it too. So it's passionate for me. It's intrinsic to my being, but I always want to share my story and share what's out there and kind of what I learned and kind of how I just kind of poked around and found things. But there was not like a illuminated path for cyber. So my goal has really been to, and even joining Mentors of Color and talking with Rachel and the team, is to share, like, hey, there are paths that are not there yet. They're not, like, public knowledge or shown yet. And, like, you'd be surprised if you have a appetite for it and like this kind of stuff. The training's there, the opportunities are there. It's just kind of getting out there and, talking with the right folks. And that really is my presentation. Again, I don't want to talk about this slide. I want to get more Q&A or sessions there, but hopefully that kind of gave you an overview of cybersecurity, kind of from my viewpoint. Hopefully learned some new things there, but would love to, open up to questions and hear from you guys and ladies.
Yeah, thank you. Let's get some questions going. If you can't, and I will maybe start with some that I have, just because I know specifically we have an audience here of those who are somewhere in the actual site, because we are recently adding our cybersecurity. So those Google career certificates that you mentioned and the Coursera platform are what we utilize for
Oh,
the
great.
platform. So ultimately, that is the ultimate confirmation that what we're doing is setting those up who are going to take advantage of this to be on par with the skills that you're going to need to have to be able to tap that. So, what are some of the advices you can give for people? I think that we have and have been talking about as a team, like really pushing some prerequisite programming that maybe we already have and exists to create a cybersecurity path within our curriculum. So we have a Python and a backend development course, and then we have IT foundations course. And
Yep.
so I think the combination of those two things really give you kind of the building blocks potentially that you would need to really be able, because you kind of mentioned that there is a little bit of a barrier to entry into jumping into some of those more.
Yep.
So kind of just talk a little bit more about the path for those who are at a low experience level now and
Yeah.
do kind of get into those entry, mid-level, mid-tier opportunities that are
Yeah.
out.
ISC squared is one of my favorite ones. It's probably the most recognized ones. ISC squared, so isc2.org is the site. I can put it here in the chat. But they've got a lot of like even free foundational training as well too. And again, it shows like just the base certification in cybersecurity. It's super foundational. It's kind of like talking about risk, talking about governance, process, people. It just kind of gives you a foundation of all the things. Now, tech is there, like the architecture, engineering is definitely part of it, but it also expands out to, how do you translate Python and those things to someone who's in finance, someone who's in like HR, they're going to say, well, how's that relevant to me? So it kind of helps you to bridge those gaps together to say, okay, here's everything. Then once you kind of see the whole landscape, you can say, okay, I want to do coding. I want to do pen testing. I want to do offensive red teaming or purple teaming. I want to do the audit side. I want to do the risk side. But before you can choose a direction, you got to see what all the roads out there that exist. And so I'd say, yeah, ISC squared is my favorite one. But there's also other ones with like SANS has got other things. They're more expensive. Like all their stuff's expensive. It's not necessarily better, but there's just a financial barrier to entry on the SANS. So ISC squared is a little more they're there for the good of the cause than just for all the financial incentive.
Got you. Looks like Monique, you have a question. You can take yourself off mute.
Hey, Cody, I know that, can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I know that we talked about the communication part about getting into cybersecurity. Can you talk a little bit more about like kind of like first steps when it comes into like the communication? I think you paired it with the business aspect, like non-technical and then technical communication.
Yeah. So a growing thing is they call it now like human risk is what they're kind of associating under. So like you look at like 70s, 80s when a computer came in, you've had massive investments in computer security, antivirus software, firewalls, firewall switches, all kinds of security. There's been very little investment in the human side of educating humans. It's like, unless you're in cyber, you don't necessarily care about cyber. You see the news and it's like, well, it doesn't affect me. So human risk and it's called awareness is like what SANS is calling it. But these companies now are building awareness programs to help mitigate human risk. So I have these elaborate programs in technology, but Sean in accounting keeps pressing a phishing email and gives his password out. And then they just took the company for $250,000 because they had his password. That circumvented all the AI, all the technology because of the social engineering. So the awareness is now being built, these programs to educate workforce and taking cyber topics and making them relevant and making them, the communication and teaching. You're basically teaching a workforce. So you're teaching people who don't live in cyber every day how to basically combat and defend themselves and watch out for things that are nefarious, both in the business and at home. So cyber attacks and ransomware and phishing are not just tied to a business. You'll see them in your personal email. grandparents, the older generation, very susceptible to, you got phishing, which is SMS, like, or text stuff. You probably get text stuff here that your Amazon account's been locked out. Click here to log into it. You get emails or your Google stuff. There's phishing, which is phone calls. So the comms part that we discussed was awareness programs. And that's the one where it's not so much the technical chops of it, but you're teaching foundational cyber hygiene to a non-technical workforce. So the content in nature is non-technical because it's for a non-technical workforce. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. I just wanted to know also, like, to get into that, like, what would be the first steps? Like, you know, if you're trying to get into that side.
Oh, gotcha. So that's a newer one. So SANS, the one the cost one, they have an awareness platform. But now they're calling it. So I would say to get into that is that's probably the hardest one to get into because a lot of companies are just now building like KnowBe4, Proofpoint. But to get into that, you're looking at like awareness, human risk is what you're looking for on like Indeed or Monster, all those different jobs. Because companies are just now opening up that position. Or what my company does is we build that for large firms. And I can tell you for like one of my clients, which is a 40,000 size person pharma company that they do drugs and everything. They have 5 people on staff that are just dedicated to building awareness content. So they're hiring. There's internships in cyber. They typically are going to say like not allowed to say, hey, awareness program. So that's where like they're learning to ask for the right things. So to say like you might find some people, find some job recs on there for awareness or for human risk. But I would say a lot of those are going to be in the interview asking about an awareness program, asking about the risk side of it, because it is there. They have not identified it yet.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Oh, thanks, Mark.
Any other questions? Anything that you could share around anything we could be doing personally to be protecting, just like some basic things that anybody could do to kind of like mitigate that risk, the human error side of that?
So I would say like multi-factor authentication or MFA or 2FA. So that's when like your phone gets a text message to it or there's an app on your phone. MFA is like table stakes, right? Like you want to do that automatically because your password and your email are out there. Dark web's full of that kind of stuff. So you can't stop your stuff from getting out there because Amazon gets breached, Equifax gets breached, LinkedIn gets breached. And so if you don't have MFA and your password gets out there, they can log into your applications, to your stuff unencumbered. MFA will at least slow them down to where they need your cell phone with it. So MFA is an automatic one. Password hygiene or using password managers like a LastPass or a Keeper, a OnePass. That way it allows you to use, because they always say like have passwords that are complex. Don't use the same password in different applications. The problem with that is like, if you're like me, I forget what I had for breakfast this morning. So I can't remember that many passwords. Using a password manager helps you to have complex passwords. You have to remember it. So password manager with MFA on all your accounts is just like basic, some really like ground security level stuff that's easy to do. And it mitigates like 97% of compromises. Some systems just don't have that. They're older systems. They don't have that ability yet, but you're seeing banks require it. And then schools require it now. Some of the more mature entities and organizations require it, but the ones that don't, it's optional. Always go in there and try and enable it. I know I just moved about a month ago and I was setting up my utilities again and was like, we have Duke Energy's our energy company. So I was like, where's this 2FA button? So I logged in there and put that bad boy on there. But it's just easy stuff to do. So multi-authentication, password management, and then emails full of spam. You just won this gift certificate. Typically those things aren't real. No one's trying to give you money via the email. I wish it was true, but typically those things are just like hooks trying to get you to click on something, log in to download something. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Thank you for that. No, that's very helpful. Just was curious, and I do really, yes, it is. Two-factor authentication. Absolutely. That's there's so many different things. I think that when talking to students about the opportunities in technology in general, but even within cybersecurity, they're so vast. There's so many different things, and you spoke to that. So it's very helpful for us to be able to have someone here who can be able to kind of like give that insight into what the different paths are. You definitely have exposed me to some other opportunities that are out there that I think that we should be kind of pushing, because we do also agree that, again, when people think about tech, they always think about coding as well. And there's so many other opportunities outside of coding when it comes to getting into this space and staying, in it. And also, I also think this also speaks to the idea that you need to be, continually learning in this space in order to find success, because these standards are changing. I think it's interesting that we're talking about, AI and its role, but we're talking about this massive acceleration of adoption of new technology, all these things happening. And so, within all that chaos, I hope that you all see the opportunity, in that. I think there is a lot of fear out there in general when it comes to, data, when it comes to the effect that AI is going to have on all these different things. But I really recommend continuing to dig into this topic, feeling like you have a little bit more control. I think operators of the technology, those who are aware, will always have opportunities to find. So even though some of these things are playing themselves out right now when it comes to the economy and some of these layoffs, when thinking about what companies are going to be prioritizing going forward, it's definitely going to be departments like this. So when it comes to like what kind of real placement, opportunities there are going to be for someone who chooses a path like this, you're talking about something that companies are going to increasingly take more of their budget and be allocating it towards this, because this is now becoming a thing where if you don't have it, and Cody's already spoke to this, then you're just vulnerable. And so that means that the money, everything that you have is vulnerable. So this is a great opportunity. I hope you guys, hopefully there's maybe a few more questions. If there's not, I won't push you guys, and I'll let you go and give you some time back in your day. But just want to express my appreciation to Cody again for sharing his presentation, answering some questions. If we have any other last questions, let's ask them now. If not, we're going to get off and get out of you guys' way and let you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Absolutely. And I'll, Mark or Rachel, I'll send the presentation to you. You have my email, any questions at all, feel free to reach out. Monique and I caught up last month, but again, I love this industry. I felt like I was very blessed to kind of fall into the path that I fell into, but it definitely was not like some, path that I ever thought I'd get into. And so now I've kind of been like, all right, that's why I'm going to work for 1150. It's like, okay, I need to turn around and say, okay, hey guys, these are and ladies, these are options that are out there that no one knows about, or that you may like, nah, it's not for me, and go somewhere else and realize like, I didn't know that this part existed. That sounds pretty cool, and so that's why there's a shortage out there, because everyone thinks there's just one door in, and there's quite a few doors.
Yeah, so many doors, and it's great that we have you as a part of the mentor, so color community to help. So hopefully somebody out here in our community will get matched with you as a mentor and have opportunity to dig further into that. So if you're on a student and you're a call and you want to learn more about cybersecurity from us at Be Nimble, and the programs are going to be offering soon, just email myself or Winnie, and we'll try to get that information to you. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. Peace.
We got a question from Chassie.
Oh, did I miss it? Okay, let me see.
She just came in, buzzer beater.
Okay, cool. Let me see. Oh, hey, Chastity, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me, Cody? How you doing, Mark?
Yep, you're loud and clear.
I wanted to know if you have a career in criminal justice, how can you bridge the two? Does that make sense to bridge the two?
Absolutely. So one of my, it's in the office next to mine. He's one of our senior consultants. His name's Jim, and he was a 20-year guy at IMPD in digital forensics. So criminal justice is on the forensic side of things is a key area when you're like looking at evidence, you're pulling out data off hard drives, you're looking to see, you're looking at, it's like a digital, I was a scavenger hunt, but a digital path that you're trying to figure out of who was when, where, looking at like, cell phone data to triangulate a cell phone at certain locations where it was during, it could be a crime, it could be a financial crime, looking at IP addresses. So digital forensics is a big thing from criminal justice. But Jim was a 20-year IMPD officer, and he started off as a patrol officer, was in forensics, and then pivoted over to cyber when he retired. So a lot of that translates because in criminal justice you're looking for patterns of malicious intent, nefarious behavior. They exist in cyber. It's just a different medium, but it's the same methodology, same things that would translate very well.
Well, thank you for your question, Chastity. Did you have any other questions? Follow up?
No, that was it. I appreciate that.
No problem.
All right. Let's see if we have any other last questions. Last call.
Excellent.
Well, thank you guys again, and I'll see you guys on the next Tech Talk.
All right. Thank you all. See you.